This video is a compilation of all my experiences repairing Paslode 16-gauge finish nailers. It happens I have two of these nailers, both of which are in need of repair. The first is this newer model. Its problem is it often fails to drop back into the full reload position. And my other, which is a far more challenging problem, randomly misfires. Being able to understand and grasp how something functions is key to successful troubleshooting. Therefore, we will start with the most basic of basic, then delve deep into the heart of these units. Before opening any unit, you'll want to check the basic four first. And these are battery, nails, gas, and drive pin position. A fully charged Paslode battery will flash red every 20th green, and then appear more frequent, eventually becoming a solid red. One fully charged battery will shoot 1,200 nails, or 1/2 of a box, and it looks like this. Paslode batteries are notorious for being difficult to remove. This is how I like to do it, with a knuckle. Keep these tracks clean and put silicone in them. To check for fuel, press the nozzle stem on a paper towel and look for a mark. Do this at least twice, as even a bad fuel cell will often leave a mark. Caution: pressing the nozzle slanted on a hard surface will quickly empty any cartridge. And just when you think you got it all figured out, here's two canisters. They're both full. They both passed the paper towel test, but one doesn't work, and I'll show you. So this is fascinating. I just learned something. These are two new canisters. The one on the right doesn't work, and I tried my test. Watch. They both work, but notice the one on the right sprays less than the one on the left. And when I swap the metering valves around, suddenly this one doesn't work. So we just learned something together here. Checking that the nails are beyond the lockout point is the next obvious step. But what isn't as obvious is seeing if the nails are actually getting under the drive pin, which brings us to the last of the basic four, drive pin position. Upon opening the gun's nose, you should see a sleeve of nails sliding forward. If not, you will see a silver rod blocking the way. This is the drive pin. To clear the opening and reload the gun, push it fully upwards and recheck that the nails can now slide forward. There are four reasons for the drive pin and piston not to return to the top position. But before we go any further, let's cover a bit of nail gun theory first. How does a nail gun reload itself? Surprisingly, the piston return mechanism in all nail guns, whether it's gas, pneumatic, or battery powered, is a simple hunk of rubber that the piston uses to slam into and bounce back to the top. But should a nail strike something solid, such as a drywall screw, the piston never reaches the bumper and thus doesn't rebound. A similar thing happens when there is insignificant gas, such as a fuel cell nearing its end. If the drive pin continuously fails to reload, it is most likely the piston is sticking and needs to be cleaned and oiled. And finally, if all that fails, you will want to check for a damaged bumper. And that is something we will get into later. And now that we've checked the four basic trouble areas and the gun still doesn't fire, it's time to take a look inside. Unlike pneumatic and battery-powered guns, butane guns need to be cleaned and oiled once or twice every season. In a Paslode gun, there are 3 sets of combustion rings. The ones that need the most attention are the rings in the combustion head, which are serviced by removing these 4 screws. The gun uses a 9/64 Allen wrench for the head and nose screws and a T20 for the rest. It happens by chance a T20 will also fit a 9/64, like that. The fan and spark plug wire, and with a slight twist, left or right for an older model, the combustion head comes off, also exposing the piston. Note, when the probe is depressed, the combustion chamber fingers will keep the head from turning and coming off. There is a third ring set inside the combustion sleeve, which we will get to later. General servicing is easy. The company sells its own degreaser and oil. Removing the nails and slide the piston down the bore. Spray. Wipe. Oil, and reassemble, making sure the fan and spark plug wires are safely tucked away in their tracks. And while we're speaking of nail lockout, if you're in a pinch and need a nail or two to finish up, simply hold back on the nail slide and you'll get a few more. These combustion head rings take the most abuse and need the most attention. With each nail driven, these get squeezed and released by the fingers of the combustion sleeve. When neglected, these rings will stick and get bent out of the ring landing, so it's very important to be aware. When it happens, similar to the out-of-nails lockout, the probe only goes halfway and then stops. Not with a thud, but with a horrid squish. Hopefully with your top end now cleaned and oiled, you're up and running. If not, and you're still having problems, we get into the fun part, open gun surgery, where we get to do all the techie stuff. But before we get started, I want to tell you the story of how I came to making this video. Some 2 years ago, my older gun started firing erratically, and for 2 years I tried everything to fix it. Eventually I found out what it was, and what it was will surprise everyone. So if you're into techie stuff, tag along and let's play detective together. The 2 guns we will be studying are Paslode's 2nd and 3rd generation finish nailers, of which they now make a 4th version. The notable differences between these 2 versions are the smaller battery, redesigned backflip probe, and the elimination of the gas metering valve. With the cylinder head removed and the battery side down, remove these screws. And this collar screw. Remove the collar. Slide this up. Battery side down. And simply lift. And lift is opening up a clam. First, we're going to take a look at the gun with the sticky probe. It's already been fixed, so I'm going to inject a flashback from the original video. At this point, all that is needed to remove the engine is the second barrel-shaped screw located on the back battery side. Note the longer barrel screws are used on the nose and the shorter ones go up top. Just like the top cover, the engine also opens like a hinge. The reason I'm opening this up today is because it doesn't return. Retracts, contact the wood, no return. It should go back by itself. This has been a problem since day one I bought this unit. So as it happens, this sticky probe thing turned out to be an easy fix. Actually, there were two things wrong, both on a part they call the yoke. Of the two return springs, one was missing its clip and had fallen out, and the remaining working spring was installed new as upside down. But there are two other reasons that a probe might stick, the most common of which is a bent probe. These probes get bent so often they are attached with a quick disconnect, making it easy to pull and put in a vise and bang straight. The third reason for a sticking probe is the third set of rings we spoke of earlier are dry and need to be oiled. This ring set is located under this sleeve and is accessed by removing this yoke. Now that we have the engine in three parts, let's dissect the genius of how this engine actually works. For clarity, we will first jump ahead a bit and remove the muffler and reed exhaust. With the piston and head assemblies secured in the casing, the combustion sleeve can easily rise and fall and do its thing. The head uses these screws while the piston assembly uses motor mounts, which go here and here, and here and here. And with the nail rack tensioner held out of the way, will easily drop in place. This is what the engine assembly looks like without the combustion sleeve, of which you will now see is the true genius and workhorse of the Paslode engine. Note, the combustion sleeve is attached directly to the nail probe. What the probe does, the sleeve does. When the gun is pressed to the work, three things will simultaneously happen. The combustion sleeve rises up into the head, forming the combustion chamber. Fuel is ejected into the engine, and the fan begins mixing the air-butane mixture ready to fire. Next, the trigger is pulled, making a spark which ignites the fuel mixture, sending the piston rocketing down the cylinder bore, driving a nail ferociously ahead of it, passing the open exhaust port, equalizing the back pressure in preparation for the rebound when it slams into the return bumper that lies just ahead. Hits the bumper, rebounds back to the top position, the gun is lifted from the work, the combustion sleeve retreats from the combustion head, the fan continues to run and rid itself of the remaining exhaust and shuts off. Well, let's keep our detective hat on and not forget about my misfiring problem. It was here at my first troubleshooting that I replaced all the engine rings. And as you may have already guessed, just replacing the rings solved nothing. So let's move on to the next two possible trouble areas: ignition and fuel injection. There are three basic things that could go wrong with a fuel system, and that is enough fuel, worn linkage, and a non-working fan. We have already covered how to check for fuel using the paper towel test, so let's move on to the next thing, worn linkage, which works like this. Two of the combustion sleeve fingers that protrude through the head double to activate this lever. You can easily test any Paslode for worn linkage by manually feeding the gun like this. If this solves the problem, look for worn surfaces such as here and here. Please take note that the U-tube hack for worn linkage, which places shims under the canister, will not work on models with black caps. Our last thing in the fuel department will be a properly working fan, which must run or the butane air-fuel mixture will not ignite. When the tube contacts the work, you should hear the fan begin to run. If it doesn't, and pulling the trigger does make the fan run, then the switch slide assembly, part 70, is probably broken. And this was my second attempt at the misfire problem, and with the fuel injection system checked out, I ordered and replaced what I thought to be a worn fuel door. Certainly, this would solve the problem. But no, it didn't. That being so, surely the problem must be in the electrical system. So let's see how the electrical system actually works. The electrical system has two switches labeled here as 1 and 2, and with good reason, for this is the order in which the switches must be pressed for the gun to fire. Note, switch 1 is normally in the open position, while switch 2 is normally closed. To keep it simple, let's think of switch 1 as a car's ignition. When the tool is pressed to the work, this switch closes, and just like the keys in a car, sends current to the coil. Now let's imagine switch 2, which remember is normally closed, as the ignition points, such as in a lawnmower. When the point, or in our case a switch, opens, the magnetic field in the primary coil collapses, sending high current up the spark plug wire looking for a place to go. And with that bit of basic theory out of the way, we can now check for a spark. On this disassembled gun, and with the fan and spark plug wires still connected, we can now press switch 1 and switch 2, and we should see a spark. And we do. Or, with just the head off, depressing the probe, then pulling on the trigger will do the same thing. If you don't see a spark, check that part number 70 is intact and that your battery is fully charged. Note, any fully charged healthy battery, regardless of what it's for, will always charge 1 volt more than its stated voltage. It is here that I stumbled upon something so interesting, I just had to share it. I noticed something, that even without the fan connected, I could still get it to spark. You see, the problem I'm having is that it is through the fan connector that the head gets its ground for the spark to even have a place to jump to and complete the circuit back to the negative side of the battery. Apparently this isn't so, and simply putting the plug in the jaws of a metal wrench proved this. But back to solving my problem. Now we are up to my third try at fixing my Paslode, and there it was, right before my eyes, a broken spark plug wire, which I ordered and replaced, and yes, failed again. But like I promised in the beginning of the video, I did eventually figure it out. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this video and other SureOaks content, please take a moment to like and subscribe. At this point, we completely and thoroughly covered the mechanical, fuel, and electrical system. And if nothing else, we sure learned a lot. It is when I was playing with a new spark plug wire that I noticed the plug was covered in oil. As it turns out, the plug was loose and engine oil had worked its way up through the threads to short out the connection. And that is why, every time the head got warmed up, the gun stopped firing. Mystery solved. Apparently this is an ongoing problem, because now all new Paslodes come with this rubber shroud, part number 5. And that's the end of my story, and from me, a sincere thank you to you all. Thanks for tagging along. Hey, if you're into road camping and exploring the U.S. and don't have a lot of money, then don't miss out on my other YouTube channel, Mike the Elk, which is all about by the seat of your pants road travel. Learn about America's best kept secret network of free inexpensive campgrounds located everywhere across the United States. Learn why no one else knows about them and why they are dying out so fast. Learn, before they all disappear, how you too can become a member of these secret havens for weary travelers. I am Mike the Elk.